Welcome to the Learning Music Hub Musical Instruments. Discover the different devices for producing musical sounds, whether it can be an stringed, wind, brass, or a percussive instrument. In Lesson 48, we will be learning about the top 12 hardest musical instruments in the world. If you want to learn about musical instruments quickly, you may always refer to this video and follow on all of our lessons. Learning to play an instrument is really a skill and a challenge that even several people dream of. To play an instrument demands a series of actions in order to have an end product of a beautiful music that is really an impressive feat. Of course, practice and a level of knowledge in whatever instrument is definitely required in order to play. The truth is that if you want to become a professional musician, it will really take lots of hard work, patience, and perseverance no matter what you play. It needs commitment of time and dedication, even if you're an above-average natural talent. The beauty of studying music is that it's your lifestyle, and it's more than education. Your instrument becomes an extension of your personality and creativity. But do you know that there are some instruments that are harder to learn than the others? Let us see those challenging ones that are hard to learn and what them makes difficult. From this list, we have selected musical instruments that has the highest level of difficulty. This instrument will really test your patience. Number 12. Cello. Cello is one of the most popular stringed instruments that most people want to learn. But learning the cello and becoming proficient to it can really be incredibly difficult. When playing cello, the instrument is propped up on a thin stand, and the musician must use their own muscle strength to hold it upright. This can be exhausting, especially when a musician is using one hand to hold the bow and the other hand to move around the fretless neck. The fact that the notes on the cello are far away from each other means that the fingers need to stretch, and this is extremely difficult for those people who have smaller fingers. Number 11. Bassoon. A bassoon is commonly known as the most difficult orchestral wind instrument to learn. It is a type of double reed instrument which are notoriously temperamental because you might hear them sometimes funny and sometimes grumpy. Generally, a bassoon creates a loud sound that cuts through other instruments. On the other hand, it will all depend on the way the musician blows on the double reed, as the lowering of the volume takes a lot of skill. Also, it requires the musician uses all 10 fingers while playing the bassoon. The fact that the combination of blowing techniques and finger placement makes the bassoon incredibly difficult to learn. Number 10. Nyckelharpa. Here's one of the Swedish and Norwegian instrument. Less known, but maybe terribly one of the most difficult stringed instrument to learn and play, the Nyckelharpa. There are lots of variations in this instrument, but most Nyckelharpas have 3 or 4 strings that are played with a bow and up to 12 strings that aren't played, called the resonance strings. The musician then bows the strings and changes their pitches with a series of different keys. The keys are located on the underside of the neck of the Nyckelharpa, making them difficult to see. Number 9. Pipe organ. Learning an electric organs may not be too tough to learn, but learning a pipe organ is a different thing, and it's the most difficult instrument to access because they can only be found mostly in the churches and cathedrals, and it's not available at the music store and bring it home. To play a pipe organ is very similar to playing the piano. You'll need to be familiar with the keyboard, but you'll also need to coordinate pulling out the stops to create a different timbre. An organist has multiple keyboards stacked on top of each other. Each one can create a different tone or octave, meaning one hand might be playing on one keyboard while other hand may be playing on a different one. And this might be the craziest part. Organists must also play with their feet. It's the foot pedals. But this isn't just pushing normal piano pedals. There is an actual keyboard under the feet of the organ player. This means that the organist may be playing 3 different keyboards at once. Number 8. Accordion. An accordion happened to be one of the hardest to learn, though it's unusual but really a unique sounding one. There's a lot of different multitasking required to play anything decent sounding. Initially, the accordion's bellows, the folded center responsible for moving air. It might sound easy to simply move the bellows to create sound, but controlling the bellows is a lot like controlling your breath as a singer. It needs precision and training to get it exactly right. There are 2 types of accordion: button accordions and keyboard accordions. The right hand is generally playing a keyboard, which is either in the form of a piano-style keyboard or a chromatic or button keyboard. while the left note will usually play chords or bass notes. Generally, you have to create your arms in motion, and mastering how to move the bellows and keep everything coordinated and synchronized is really incredibly difficult, and it's the biggest hurdle. It's not as simple as just opening and closing the instrument. But this amazing instrument will ultimately let you play beautifully intricate pieces of music. Number 7. Oboe. Oboe is certainly not one of the easiest instruments to learn. It is a reed instrument that requires a very precise mouth position. It is said that mastering the controlled breathing required to learn the oboe may not one of the most difficult aspects of any wind instrument. One of the most challenging aspects of playing oboe is its shape. The oboe cylindrical bore makes it so no scale is perfectly in tune. So the skilled players can learn to compensate with the different fingerings or embouchure techniques. But as you might guess, there is a significant learning curve. It may take significant time to learn oboe and even years for a player to produce a musical sound. So why do oboe learners put up with so much frustration? When played well, the oboe can produce sounds that are sweet and warm. Most people learning an instrument will become frustrated or demotivated if it just doesn't sound good. So many oboe beginners give up. That's why selecting the correct reed can make a real difference. One of the oboe's major challenges is that it needs for a great breath control. Can sometimes be an asset. Unlike most wind instruments, the oboe requires a very controlled airflow as opposed to a powerful one. That makes it a good choice for people with a small lung capacity. However, if you get beyond those issues, you'll find that it's one of the most counterintuitive instruments to play. You will often have to lower your hand position to play a higher pitch or raise your hand to play a lower pitch. Learn the oboe well, and you'll be in high demand. Number 6. Guitar. People think that it is both an easy and very difficult to learn instrument. How is it possible for two people to think that the guitar is the hardest and easiest instrument at the same time? Let's find out. Some people also consider it an easy instrument to learn, which is absolutely true if your goal is to develop a basic understanding of how to strum open chords. If your goal is to become a proficient guitarist, the guitar is really a difficult instrument. It's really an incredibly versatile instrument that's not only pleasing to listen to, it's also very portable, making it an ideal companion for a traveling musician. Guitar is considered by many to be one of the most difficult instruments to learn because of its polyphonic capabilities. its abstract representation of the notes, the physical dexterity required to play, and the potential pain and discomfort associated with finger pain and hand cramps. Your hand does stretch out and play those awkward chords better as time goes on, and your fingers do get calluses. But even after months of consistent, even daily practice, there are some chord shapes that will almost be impossible for you to play because they are so difficult. Furthermore, it also requires a lot of muscle memory to master the frets and strings. Practicing a play without staring at the guitar strings can help to progress your mind and to create a mental map of where all the strings are as well as each fret. In other words, your hands and fingers have to learn where the notes are, and that's especially tricky for the guitar since the note and string locations are vertical and horizontal due to the design of the guitar, unlike piano, where the note locations are linear. Number 5. Piano. Piano is a perfect example of an instrument that's easy to learn the basics, but one of the hardest instruments to master. It may lead you into a false sense of security. You can start off playing beginners one-handed music and learn simple tune within a few minutes. Pair that with some simple left-hand chords and you can piece together most of the simple tune in a couple of hours. For most learning pianists, being able to play with both hands at the same time is a challenge. Learning to play the piano requires focus and persistence, especially when it comes to learning to play the correct keys with both your left hand and your right hand. It has 88 keys. Each key triggers a mechanism that makes a hammer strike the corresponding string. Hammers are larger and heavier at the bottom end but get progressively lighter as you move upwards. Even if it is easy to understand a basic music theory, the pattern of black and white keys mean fingering is more complicated. You can't repeat the same fingering pattern for every scale or key like you can to an extent to a guitar, for example. The amazing thing about piano is that you can do so much. You can play percussively, rhythmically, melodically, and create the most complex harmonies. Actually, piano's versatility is also one of the things that make it so hard to master. Sometimes, you'll encounter different rhythms in each hand or voicing that are physically difficult to reach because there are no pitch repeats. You have to develop feel and expression not only in your hands but in using the foot pedals too. A piano has been known as the multitasking instrument. The piano also became an instrument that you play with both your hands and your feet. Using your piano pedals can make a major difference in your playing dynamics, but synchronizing them is often difficult. According to Vladimir Horowitz, piano is the easiest instrument to play in the beginning and the hardest master in the end. Number 4. Harp. The harp is actually one of the most difficult instruments to learn. This is partly because harps have a large number of strings, usually from 22 to 47. So, to be an effective harpist, great muscle memory is a must. In time, you'll be able to remember the location of each string. Like in a guitar, you can learn to play simple pieces relatively easily with this beautiful instrument. But once you move into more complex pieces, you'll see why it's considered to be one of the hardest instruments to learn. And like a piano, the harp can often be played with pedals to make the notes flatter or sharper. Being able to play the strings and pedal at the same time can prove to be incredibly difficult. Lastly, there are absolutely limitations in learning the harp as a self-taught player. Unlike the guitar, piano, and other popular instruments, there aren't many available courses for learning the harp out there. Number 3. Bagpipes. Bagpipes may be considered to be the most annoying instrument. For this instrument requires skill, patience, and dedication to learn. The musician must have a strong lungs and master the breathing technique that allows the bagpipe to produce continuous notes. On top of that, there is also a balance between the amount of air being blown into the bag and being released from the bag that also must be learned. To learn to play bagpipes, it's a good idea to work with a skilled instructor. But interestingly enough, you don't start learning with a full set of bagpipes. Instead, you use a smaller, more affordable practice device called a practice chanter. Even experienced players use these instruments to practice newer material. Chanters have the advantage of letting you practice new pieces without also having practiced the powerful airflow needed to play a full set of pipes. Number 2. French horn. French horn is one of the most recognizable and most difficult among the brass instruments. This instrument can produce a captivating sound, but learning to play the French horn is renowned for being extremely difficult but very rewarding to learn to play. French horn involved developing a lot of control in the placement of the lips, as slightly wrong lip placement can drastically affect the note produced. In learning the French horn, you must first master the correct embouchure or mouth position to even begin the playing the instrument. To produce just the correct sound, French horn player buzz their lips perfectly, but this is where the things get tricky. The valve positions on the French horn differ from the other wind instruments. There are also many different combinations of valves that can be pressed to create notes. This means that the learner not only needs to memorize where each valve is, but what the note they produced when pushed down together. On top of all that, the hornists can also change the pitch of notes by where they place their hand inside the bell of the horn. Put all together and you've got a recipe for a top instrument to learn. The French horn is also quite difficult to hold. Its large and awkward round shape makes it hard to play for a long periods of time. Some orchestras will even have a backup lead horn player, as the first player may get too tired to continue producing perfect music after a long period of time. French horn is one of the most versatile instruments of the brass section. However, you can begin to understand how difficult it is just to hit the right notes as you play. But if you learn, it's worth it. You'll be an influential member of any horn section. Number 1. Violin. The list of the hardest musical instrument is not complete without the violin. This might be the most musically versatile instrument, and you might even see a violinist playing effortless in driving a bow, but it's extremely difficult in reality. Violin's difficulty comes from the use of the bow. You need to create just the right amount of pressure on the strings to produce a decent sound. Press too hard and you get a horrific ear-piercing screech. Press too lightly and you just get a surface scratch. Violins don't have frets, and this is a simple fact, which is unlikely other string instruments that, like the guitar, can guide your finger placement via frets. But one of the first violin skills you'll need to master is perfect finger placement on the neck. Some instructors will help newer students by placing lines of tape on the neck to indicate the right hand placement. Learn how to coordinate tricky fingering techniques with the precise arm movements needed to bow properly. And it's easy to see why the violin is one of the most difficult musical instruments to master. Even the body posture it takes to hold and play the violin can be strenuous. The main difficulty with learning to play the violin is trying to produce a beautiful tone. Anyone can hold their finger in place and drag a bow across the string. The hard part is trying to do this beautifully to produce a full and rounded sound at the correct volume, tone and pitch for the correct length of time without running out of bow length. Other things that make violin difficult to learn are trying to hold it on your shoulder in the first place, in a way that enables your left hand to move freely up and down the fingerboard. When you get advanced in your violin playing skills, you will also need to learn a lot of new finger positions to go higher up the neck and the violin and develop a good vibrato, which is quite difficult but necessary to produce a professional and beautiful sound. Take advantage of this best and free music app only here in YouTube. Learning Music Hub, Musical Instrument. An animated approach, made clear and easy to understand. You can possess all these music lessons. Just click like, subscribe, and click on the bell button so that you can always get updated with all of our great music lessons that's coming in your way. Thank you.